Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Ladd and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 275. And if you are listening on the day of release, like many of you do, it is the 5th of December. So we're getting Christmassy, aren't we, Pete?
I've actually bought a Christmas jumper.
So when we record the Christmas special in a couple of weeks, we're going to go. I actually said to Steph yesterday, oh, we'll have to find my festive backdrop for Zoom and I'll get my jumper out and things. So yeah, it's a bit.
All I'm going to say is you said you need to buy a Christmas jumper and I was like, no chance. And then one popped up on somewhere, Google or social or Facebook or somewhere. And I was like, oh, I want that one. So it's a good one.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, you're okay, Pete, I take it?
I'm very well. Thank you very much.
Very well. Yes. Brilliant. Now, we are joined by a very special guest today, who's a lady who I met a number of months ago. And I think I may have even mentioned her on the podcast the day after we met, because we had a really lovely conversation over a dinner where we were sat next to each other all around kind of, we talked all around kind of longevity and aging. And when I found out what this lady did, I said at the time when I met her, we'll have to have you on to talk about what you do. And then since then, I've found out more about what she does. But yeah, this is going to be great because we talk a lot around longevity and aging. But this lady comes at this from a kind of a different perspective than we've ever had on the podcast before. So really looking forward to today's conversation. We are joined today by Caroline Southgate. How are you doing, Caroline?
I'm good. Nice to see you.
Excellent. Good to see you. And I suppose save me rather than me trying to butcher what it is you do. I won't even try. I said save me trying to do it, and then I was about to do it. I won't do it. Okay. So Caroline, do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of yourself, your background, because and what your business does now, and what it does is it's from a very unique perspective, I think, from anything else that I've seen or heard about before. So just kind of wherever you want to start from, Caroline, really.
Well, we'll start from the beginning and try not to take till Christmas because it's quite a long story and I'm quite old now. But I started my career, if you like, as a physiotherapist in Southend Hospital and Brentwood Hospital, all these places doing physiotherapy. That's my background, and I was doing private practice and I was going out to see older people in the afternoons when the practice goes quiet. There's that sort of dead space, and seeing people in their own homes who had age-related things. So there was one particular lady who had a very bad year. I always tell Janet's story, and she'd had a really bad year. She'd retired. She had always walked quite badly because she had cerebral palsy, but she'd been unwell, and she wanted a physio to get her walking again. And one of the things that happened with with Janet was that she had a care company coming in 4 times a day, and they would help her get up, washed and dressed. So although she needed exercises, actually what she needed was little and often. And I got hold of the care company and said, could you work with me to just change slightly how she stands up, sits down, those sorts of things, just to use that as part of her exercise? And they said no. And I was really taken aback by that and thought, well, that's ridiculous. So I phoned every other care company in Southend and said the same thing, and they all said no. So I went back to Janet and said, this is really tricky, but I can't find a care company that will help you with your exercises when I'm not here, because physios can't be there every day of the week. And she said, well, you'd better start a care company then, hadn't you? So I launched my thought process into how would you start a home care company, because there were lots of them, but as a physio. And so we're 14 years in to having a home care company. And that's a CQC regulated business, which means we have a lot of compliance things to do. We train carers up. We're not all physios. We've got a physio as a manager. And what we do, which is unique, I think, to us really, is that we train all of our staff to be really much more aware of that rehab thing, the rehab mindset. So we look after about 150 elderly people across the Southend area. So I know you're based in Chelmsford, aren't we? We don't go everywhere. But I think there's lots in common with people with aging relatives all over the world, really. And I think the lens that we give to that is why I'm here. It's sharing that idea that you can actually support people in daily living by just being a bit more proactive about keeping them fit and well as, you know, just ticking boxes, which is personal care. So that's where I'm at. I'm very keen to keep learning about this subject, and it's the elderly population who are teaching us, isn't it? You know, there've never been so many so frail elderly ever looked after at home. Most generations before us, those people would have been either wouldn't have made it because lifespan has increased, or they'd have been in care homes or hospital beds. And so the beauty of living in this generation is if you're going to make it to 100, it's highly likely that you'll be able to live in your own home, but you might need a bit of support to do that. So hopefully we can talk about either avoiding the need for support, or what does it look like, and how do you get the most out of your later bit of your life, whenever that is.
So yeah, sorry, go on, Pete.
This hits home for me because my mum's 81.
Right.
And my dad died 22 years ago. She was 59 when he died. And she doesn't do anything. She's not very active at all. But she's at the age now where she needs a little bit of looking after her. Like I don't live in Newcastle where she is, and my brother lives up the road and all of that sort of stuff. So she's got carers.
Yeah.
But it's amazing because she's slightly different, say, to this other lady probably. But if someone will do something for her, she'll let them do it. She'll just be like, yeah. And you know, they'll come in and they'll like make a dinner, microwave a dinner or whatever. And she's like, I'm like, you can do that. And she's like, yeah, but they do it for me. You know,
yeah,
so
it's a shame, isn't it?
I think that's it. But if they said, are you going to do it? She would do it.
She would do it, yeah.
Are you the only company that does this that you know?
No, definitely not the only company. I would say a very strong brand in the sort of South End area of this. There are home care companies all over the country. I'm actually on the board of the Home Care Association, and that's got something like 3,000 members. Each member is a company, and that's all of the UK, so all of the nations of the UK. So there are some really good care companies all over the place. There's a very good brand called Home Instead, who are everywhere. They're all over the world, and they've got lots of franchises that will be outstanding. They're very high quality. And then there's people with very tiny businesses with maybe 10 carers who look after a few people in their area. It's a very mixed market of care providers. Some of them are owned by carers, some of them are owned by, you know, franchise owners, that sort of thing. But I think you are a consumer in this world, and I think that's the problem. Is your mum is the first time you've interacted with the care world, and so trying to navigate your way through, well, where do I get the help and who do I trust with this person is quite difficult. And I think that's part of the mission of this type of conversation, is going, okay, let's make more people of our age group, well, I think I'm a bit older than you, but the age group who've got the 80-plus-year-old relatives a bit more aware of what's available to them.
Can I ask, Caroline, when you initially approached the care company and said about, you know, can you maybe ask her to stand up slightly differently or this, and they all kind of said no. Is that because why was that? Would you say
it's a good thing? I think partly it's because sometimes the way that care is commissioned, so there's the care world's a bit different to the NHS. The NHS is for all of us, and it's very political, and it's a very important bit of our taxpayers' money, isn't it, where the money goes. So where the money goes is the NHS is free at the point of contact, so you don't pay for your GP and your nurse and all the rest of it, but you do pay for care if you've got some savings. So because the local authorities buy huge numbers of hours of care from care companies, and then the people who have to pay for them themselves are different, you end up with this market with lots of different people providing care all over a place. Now that means that the pressures on the companies that are commissioned by the local authority. So, for example, Janet, my patient, all of her care was going to be paid for by the taxpayer. It was going to be paid for by the local authority because she didn't have much savings. That means that she's technically not really the customer. The company is providing care that's being paid for by the local authority, and they are not paying enough. Quite frankly, they're not paying enough. So they put the company under a lot of pressure. They give them a list of tasks. They say, you've got 20 minutes or half an hour or less to get washed and dressed and medication done and put something in the microwave and get out of there quickly. And that's part of the problem, is that the quality that you want to add, which is, but just take your time with the standing up and just do a few steps, standing on the spot sort of thing, or just get them to lift a can of beans above their head and strengthen their arms. The quality that is that bit is really difficult for those companies when they're being asked to do everything at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, because I suppose you don't know that. I'm not saying the quality, the level of, like you say, they're overstretched, but the staff that go into these people might be different staff every day, might be, so to actually try and have some kind of standardized, it's almost like an additional, and that's why you set your company up, isn't it? Because you can then give that additional training and that additional education to the carers and things. So you say there's lots of these companies around, but are there lots of companies that are kind of ran from a physiotherapy kind of care point of view? No.
That was my question earlier. Actually, that's what I meant when I said, "Are you the only one who does this?" From that,
in the physio world, we actually had a meeting earlier today, actually, with a little group of the Home Care Association's members who happen to be allied health professions, and that includes us. So there was, of all the 3,000 members, we've managed to find, I think, one speech and language therapist who runs a care company, one or two OTs, occupational therapists. There's a few of them, and one other physio. So it's rare. I think it's a really good idea. And I think once physiotherapists start to see where social care is really where all their skills could be used, I think they will follow it. But things like this help, don't they? Talking about, why not? Why aren't the new graduate physios who are a bit entrepreneurial, who go into private practice, particularly who do sort of musculoskeletal injury and backache and athletes, they would be really suited, those entrepreneurial physios, to coming in to do what I do. But so I'm on a bit of a mission to try and improve that. So if I get to Newcastle, Peter, I'll let you know and go and see your mum.
Absolutely, because my mum's going to live forever. She doesn't smoke, she doesn't drink, she never has. She's going to be around for another 40 years at least. But it's funny that you say it. Basically, it wasn't me who sorted it out. It was my brother who did it, because he's closer. He's closer up there, and he did everything. He didn't really tell me much. He just said, "I've done this," and she's got carers coming in and blah blah. I was like, "Oh, okay." So, but what he did say, because he works for the local council, so he knew a bit about it, and he could ask the person who works in that office and stuff like that. But my mum pays for it. But he said there was some going from they were £14 an hour, there was £28 an hour, there was £50 an hour. So he said, you don't want this one because they'll be in and out. You've just said, they've got the tasks to do. They'll be in and out and gone because they've got to be on to the next one, and they're overrun. The poor people who do it will be overrun, and they've got to get paid. And then there's all the overheads and everything. And for 14 quid for an hour is not a lot. And then, but obviously you get to the other end where it's too expensive, and it's well, people haven't, once the money runs out, it's then paid for by. So if you go for the top notch one, you might get that for 6 months, but then you've got
then you've got to go
the local
down.
authority. Then all of a sudden the standard drops. So
it's a very good description of how that market is set up, because the 14, 15 quid an hour is not enough. It's not enough to train people, to insure them properly. So he's right to be wary of that. Then I would go, once you go over a certain point, then what you're looking for is a quality assurance. So, and that's really about the style of how the person runs the business. So you can look those companies up on the CQC website, so Care Quality Commission. And in Scotland, and Ireland, it's slightly different, but there's always a regulator. So you can look them up, look at what the report says, and look at how much of a rating they've got towards outstanding. Because if you're going to pay for the more expensive one, you are going to get better quality, but then you can judge those sorts of things. And the other thing is, a bit like hairdressers, no one ever moves, because people think, I've started with them, so I've got to keep going. Actually, you are a customer, you can move. So if you're not happy, move to a different one. And also talk to the people who own the company and find out what made them start the company in the first place. There's an enormous number of people in this sector who are very driven by caring. They really do care. they're and they'll find resources as well. Some of these carers are astonishing, and there's nothing wrong with, you could find if you wanted to do a bit more exercise, for example. There is nothing to stop you finding a private physio or someone like James with the fitness centre, getting a personal trainer for your mum and saying, can you just come and see her once and give my carer some exercises to do? And then the companies that will allow you to just buy enough time will let you, just like we would chop up potatoes and make mash and cook from fresh. If you're buying time, you can buy time to do exercises. And most simple exercises could be explained to a carer quite safely. I think you're going back to your question of why aren't people doing it. I think a professional from outside the care company asking the carers to do something feels a bit risky to the manager. It feels a bit like, oh, it's not my specialty, so I better not do it. But actually, you as exercise prescribers in your business, you're often telling people how to do exercise and sending them off to do it perfectly safely. And I think the exercise prescribers of the world have got a lot to offer social care as well, whether that's physios or personal trainers. But it's all about accountability, isn't it? Is that if you've got a business that's involved in fitness, you could very easily train care workers to do exercises in someone's home that are relevant to their strength and preventing falls and balance and
I think
but you just need to make sure the instructions are really clear so that someone doesn't get it wrong. Everybody's worried about being sued, aren't they?
Well, that's probably why the company sort of said, no, we won't do that. Another reason, isn't it? It's like, that's not in our realm of expertise. That's not what we do. If our carers try and do something with them and they hurt themselves, then we're going to be in trouble. Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's about the professional who's got the skill to be able to delegate something like that. How risky is it? And then explaining. It's like toenail cutting is quite similar because I've had this business for a really long time, and we've always said that's what we don't do. We don't cut toenails because you could give someone gangrene. Cut the toe on a person who's got diabetes, who's very frail and elderly, you end up with a really septic foot. But when we talked to our insurers and said, if we trained our carers in foot health, not necessarily, really complicated medical problems, but which is really simple, could we cut toenails if we train them properly? They said yes. And so actually you just needed to myth bust the problem. Like, people would quite like to have their fingernails cut and their toenails cut. Can we do that if we train them to do that just like a nail bar would do? And they said, yeah, absolutely. But in that process is the training which says, don't do this with someone who's type 1 or 2 diabetes, who's already got poor circulation, who's got heart problems. It's not difficult to come up with a safe way of doing things, is it? But I do think there's too many people don't take the time to think outside of their restricted boundaries. But that's
I think with this it sounds like the future of it. So thinking about it way down the line is, at the minute that this doesn't necessarily happen from a physio point of view. So the carers go in and make meals and do things for people.
Yeah.
But then if you could say, right, we'll do all of that, but for 2 minutes, we'll get you to stand up and sit down in the chair again. Then the next time we'll do it for like 4 minutes and then sit. So over a period of a year, say, for an elderly person or whatever, they could become stronger and more self-sufficient.
Yes.
So the carers then you'd get the balance of a 50-50. I'll come in and do things for you that you definitely like, have a shower or something like that, get in and out the bath, things like that. But for the other half, we'll get you to sit up and down or something. And then the balance would tip, and then it's like everything
else. They might not
else.
need care. The thing is that this, as a society, all of the societies of the Western world are struggling with a aging population. We've got to find ways of keeping people as mobile as possible. The biggest reasons that people get admitted to hospital in older age are a fall with a fractured bone, or a urine infection, or an infection because they're dehydrated. So if you put the two things together and avoid them, you actually keep people well without really very much effort. You can reduce the need for care in the first place. Nobody really wants care in their own home. Nobody. If I said to you, I'm going to send someone in to help you have a shower and a bath or whatever, get in and out, you're on and off your loo, you go, no thanks. But that's really intimate and personal. So nobody wants that to happen. We had a student, a PhD student, go and talk to some of our customers about what it felt like to have care in their home for the first time. And what they said was they didn't want it. once they'd accepted care, they really liked the people that came in and they could appreciate the value of it. But nobody goes, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll have care. Nobody has care too early, I don't think. I think one of the things that James and I were talking about briefly earlier was, how do you make the decision about when you have care? What are the challenges and stuff? And actually, one of the challenges is getting the timing right. Don't wait for a major crisis with your mum in a big heap on the floor and now not very well and a broken hip. But equally, don't put care in too early either, like you say, because it's almost disabling. So there's a balancing act, isn't there, between accepting enough help to keep going. It's a bit like wearing your glasses. If you're squinting at everything, you just need a little bit of a prescription. And then later on, you might need, a bit more. But
I think with that, you can put care in though earlier of self care, because a lot of people, we talk about this. I mean, we're obviously talking about this from a different perspective on this particular episode, but we talk a lot about people in their 40s, 50s, 60s who've been working hard and working long hours, and they're stressed and they're feeling tired and ill and old and all of that when they're not really, because everyone's getting older, and like with NHS and everything, we can stay alive longer.
Yeah.
So it's looking after yourself at that time, when you're younger, and then you're less likely to need care when you get older. That's the thing. So, but obviously,
and the message, I mean, the motivation is very high, isn't it, at 40 or 50 or 60 to stay well and active. And nobody really wants to think about, I mean, we have enough trouble getting people to write a will, don't we? In terms of...
Yeah, guilty.
It's like nobody really wants to think about the end, but it's more likely that you'll get someone to write their will than you will to get them to sit down and think about what it might be like to be 85 and needing a bit of help and what that would look like. It's almost like a blind spot that we don't want to admit that we're going to need that sort of help. And I say, you can see it off. I did a really nice morning yesterday talking to some ladies down at the golf club near me, and they're 90s. They were really well. They still play 9 holes of golf every week. They have a really nice, buzzy social lunch every week, once or twice a week. At 90, 91, they know who they've got around them who has got dementia, and they made a WhatsApp group with, this is at 90, they've got a WhatsApp group that shares the responsibility, if you like, for the lady who's got the dementia problems to go out with 1 or 2 of them every week, because she can walk, but she just can't remember where she's, what she's doing or playing golf. But that community, that socializing has been going on since they were 60. When they first retired, they started playing golf. They absolutely look like the fittest 91-year-olds I've ever seen. But it's not just it's the walking, the planning, the socializing, being together, keeping an eye on each other, being part of the community and helping other people. Like they're 90 and they're helping their friend who's probably younger than them, who's got dementia. And I think that the answer is finding the fitness. I mean, I use a personal trainer and go in, and I quite like being in the gym situation on my own with one person. It's very self-indulgent, isn't it? But as you get older and perhaps you've got a bit more time, if you probably would be better to add a class, add a joint thing, join a group of things in order to be part of a community. And that avoiding isolation is probably the biggest reason to stay independent.
Because one of the things, there's a couple of questions I know Pete's thinking, because we talk all the time about the importance of community and being around people when you're whatever activity you're doing. So one of the things, so a couple of the kind of little things thoughts I had jotted down was the importance of independence as we get older. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because what you've just said there, it's the old Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You've got the independence, then you've got the dependence when you're young, and then you want independence, but then it's the interdependence of having people around you where the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, or whatever. I probably butchered that, but you know what I mean, whereby you get far more from being with a group than you do on your own. So that's interesting actually, because like you say, well, I mean, that's, I presume, why one of your things that on your post is about. So you provide physio-led home care, helping older people stay independent where they're happiest at home. So people need to have the ability to be independent, meaning they can look after themselves, I suppose. But then also the importance of not being so independent that you're on your own all the time. It's that kind of
lonely. Avoid the loneliness at all costs, because you can be as fit as a flea but desperately lonely, and that's life threatening, isn't it? You know, I say to my staff when I'm training them, your company is as valuable as the medication. It's as life-saving. It's important that we get people to eat and drink. It's important that we get their medications taken and all those things. But actually having a chat and talking about, well, we're British weather, you know, whatever, but having that conversation is as important. And I think getting out and about and still being useful. Really, I think what people tell us is they feel like, one of the things that research project told us was that people said once they'd accepted care, they were of no use to society anymore. And we took that really to heart and thought, okay, how do we address that? If they're not going to say that out loud to the care workers, but what do we do about that? And then along comes the pandemic, and one of the things we did was we worked out how to teach people to do Zoom calls and WhatsApp calls to their, and all of a sudden, actually, in some ways, the isolation of being older and being stuck in your house actually was opened up. Although it was horrendous that people were stuck in the house for so much in lockdown, what people learned was how to talk to the Australian grandchildren about their exams on Zoom or on WhatsApp. So there are ways of getting that sort of community purposeful interaction, I think, that we should really tap into. And people want to talk about tech coming into home care, and it's not about robots replacing humans, but it is about bits of kit, you know, like Alexa, play me something to cheer me up. You know, actually, if I say it too loud, she probably will. That sort
Everyone's
of
will
stuff,
be going off all over the place.
Hey Siri, turn all the lights on. I'm feeling a bit lonely. You know, I mean, you could really use that sort of technology to be part of the process. Or have you tried asking ChatGPT to talk to you? It's very clever. I need motivating to get out of bed and go to the gym. I asked it one morning, and it came on as a voice saying, "You will really feel the benefit of this." So I think interacting somehow with other people is got to be part of that independence. But if you go back down the lifespan, the bone health and the pelvic floor health for the bladder and the sort of cardiovascular fitness, your brain health, all of those things, you're right, your stressed out 50-year-old is probably not going to make it to 70 unless they change their behavior. So the people we're looking after who are currently 80 to 105 in their own homes, if you say, well, what was your secret? It was a balance. It was a balance between they ate well, they didn't overeat, they're not generally overweight, they are generally interested in something. They've quite often taken on a new challenge, started, I don't know, anything from oil painting to line dancing at 70 or 80. My grandmother started watercolor painting at 80 and exhibited before she died at 85. So I think the tips along the way are those things, aren't they? Those adding.
Yeah, because that's actually one of the things I asked. One of the things was practical advice for elderly and carers of the elderly. What can be done to promote and preserve independence? And I think a lot of the stuff that we're talking about at the moment is answering that question. You know, it's and the other thing was we spoke about this, I know, when we sat down together, but how elderly is kind of, this is so interesting because how it's sort of sliding, because I know that, and sometimes you think, well, is it just me and is it the way I was looking at the world when I was younger? But 20 or 30 years ago, you probably feel the same, Pete, I'd imagine, like someone in their 60s or 70s, like your grandmother, seemed quite old. And I know we're getting older, so you know,
Yeah,
but
she looked the same to me. She looked older. What I now know must have been 50.
yeah. And you think, well, actually, but now people in there, like I say, we've got members at the gym in their 60s and their 70s, and Jeff is like 77, 78, and he goes skiing with us every year. You know, and you've got, like I mentioned, a lady called Kaza who's in her 70s, whose mum's 95, and lots of people in their 60s and 70s are really energetic and active, and you know, going on like holidays all over the world, and you know, really kind of it's very, very different now. I think anyway. Is that how you see it as well?
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely
Yeah.
changed. I mean, retirement age is 67. The chances are that the kids coming up behind us won't be able to retire till they're 70, 75. We won't be able to afford, society won't be able to afford pensions that are from 60, 65 through to 100. Well, it just won't. So, and because we are well, lots of people will get another job. There's a very nice book called Stage Not Age, which is worth a look. And it's really aimed, it's a Harvard Business Review book. And unfortunately, I've forgotten the author, but I'm sure we can find it. Can't we put it in your notes somewhere? But
I think I wrote it down when I spoke to you before, and I
did
was meant to
you?
buy it, and I haven't.
It's
Yeah, let me just.
one of my favourite, because what she's describing in that book.
Wilner.
No, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And what she's describing in that book is exactly what you're saying. It's that what used to be, you'd learn, earn, and retire, and now there's more like that, which is sort of 3 stages of life. Whereas now it's more like 5 or 6 stages and interchangeable stages. So I at 50, about a few years ago, what was I, 55, 56? I broke my leg skiing. So at 55, with a full leg cast on in a 3rd bedroom, a 3rd floor flat, I'm about as mobile as a 100-year-old. So in that time, I used my care staff to come in and help me a bit, just for 8 weeks of non-weight bearing because of a ski injury. Well, why not? You know, because then you're using the care when you need it, but also then the fitness element of that is I then got the plaster cast off, and I got membership of David Lloyd because I got a swimming pool. So I did lots and lots of walking up and down in the water, and then I go back to what I normally do, which is a bit of Pilates and a bit of yoga and a bit of. And I think going to work, retiring, doing something different is the way forward. And I think that's what she's describing, is how businesses and how individuals react across that piece from, say, your first career, your probably your core career, which might be from, let's say it's from 18 or 20 something to 40, but actually between 40 and say 80, you might do 2 more different careers. And I think that is the huge shift, isn't it? Is that there are people working and contributing and picking up the grandchildren, running around, doing their shop completely independent. And they joke about, you'll know you're old when they call it a fall rather than you fell over.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that.
Yeah.
So when I fall at 55 and break my leg, is it a fall or did I fall over?
You were skiing, weren't you?
I was skiing, but they say, but that could have been outside on the pavement. And you can just imagine the doctor's notes, 55-year-old, 65-year-old, 75-year-old had a fall. And it's like we use this old language around old people doing old things. And actually, I don't think it's true anymore. Look at the ladies at the golf club, 90-odd, using WhatsApp, getting to the golf club. I think we need to stop the ages chat. I say to carers sometimes, have you ever used the phrase, sweet old lady? And everybody says yes, and then you go, well, why? She might not be a sweet old lady. It's ageist, and it's actually quite derogatory. And it's like, actually, that powerful 78-year-old is as valuable as a powerful 28-year-old in life. I think we've got to stop writing people off in that language that we use around old age.
Well, there's one of those things, isn't there? I mean, we're talking about, I can't remember specifically. We haven't talked about this for a while, but like when someone's body, your brain wants to do things that your body can't do as you age as well. Like if you're not getting dementia and all that sort of stuff, your brain, like, because you know what I mean. I'm getting to the point now where I'm getting to probably halfway through my life, if I live till I'm 100, and I don't feel like I'm any older than I was 30 years ago. So God knows what I'll feel like when I'm 80. But if my brain's still doing what it's doing now, I want my body to be able to cash those checks, if that makes sense.
And I think you get to a position where you have to look for all of the systematic ways of being fit and well. So if you're in pain, you need to do something about it. So pain. So we look at pain management and go, okay, well, if 2 paracetamol 4 times a day is going to help you to move through some arthritis, use it, because it's not addictive and it's not a major problem. I mean, this is not it's not a show about meds, but you know what I mean? It's like, deal with the pain measure, use a heat pack, use your whatever it takes in order to stay moving. Don't just sit down and give up because it hurts. There's that, and that can start at 50 easily, can't it? Sore hands, sore knees, there's so people.
I already use the heated seat in the car on the way to the gym.
Gets your back
I haven't got a
heat,
car.
heat up the lower back, heat up the lower back of
yeah,
it.
I mean, you do the thing in the gym though, don't you, James? With people who come in, if they're not as mobile or whatever, you do the thing of getting up and down off the floor. You had that lady who was using the bench to get up and down off the
Leslie,
floor.
yeah.
And then you do it with like,
I've got a guy at the moment actually who's 60. He's only what is he? Oh no, 71. Yeah, 71. Gentleman's just started, but last year he had long non smokers like lung cancer, and he had to have the top right lobe of his lung removed. So he came to me really recently, only within the last month, really, month or 5 weeks and he was really anxious around getting out of breath because he'd had, so we've started very, very gently, and he would say that he could walk probably 100 yards and he'd get out of breath and be panicking. So we've just started doing very, very gentle stuff. But I started getting him onto the floor and off of the floor and having a really little walk around the car park in between, and then doing some sit to stands and all that basic sort of stuff. But yeah, it's so important. And
And I think businesses like yours, which are bang smack in the middle of the community, are the future of that type of stuff, because really sadly the NHS, regardless of how clever the physios are not going to have the bandwidth and the time and the money to take as much time as you will have. So his investment in your time is a significant, actually it's a significant money saver for the rest of us, because the taxpayer's not going to be paying for him to be looked after, because he's now, if you look at the outcome of someone like that, if he doesn't do he doesn't choose and invest in what you're doing, what's the likely outcome? And the likely outcome is very poor, because that cardiovascular health and the respiratory system will just go down and down and down, and his capacity to move becomes a person on oxygen in their own home with multiple chest infections, and the outcome's doesn't look great. Whereas if you start to invest, as you say, gently, but we can't expect, I don't think, as a nation, that the NHS is going to have the bandwidth for everybody to have what you do given to them for nothing. And I think we all have to look at how do we invest, and it actually isn't necessarily one-to-one with someone like you, but it could also be, there are lots of freebies around, there are lots of community falls prevention groups, and there are YouTube videos of how to, and there's the sun out there on a sunny day, go for a walk. And I think we have got, as a nation, we're a bit sick. We've got a bit too much sickness involved in waiting to be told by a sort of hierarchy when I can do something. But actually, it's businesses like yours, they're all over the place, businesses like yours, aren't they? Teams of really well qualified personal assistant people who are interested in other people's well-being.
Because Pete as well runs a walking group down in Bath, because he's from Newcastle, but he lives in Bath in Somerset. So he does a lovely walking group down there, don't you, Pete? And that's all kind of, it's all the stuff that we're talking about. It's the fresh air, the sun on your skin, walking, talking, community, building healthy relationships.
There's lots of it around, isn't it? There's lots of that available. And I think what I find with the people who I now I'm doing care for is that they've become very isolated, and that will be hearing. If your hearing's not right, you've really got to go top down. What are the problems? Because I always think vision is so interesting, because we don't think twice about sticking a pair of glasses on and then getting a stronger prescription. But God, trying to get someone to go for a hearing test is like drawing, you think you were trying to chop their head off. But actually, if you don't keep an eye on your hearing, when you then go to a big group thing, or next time you see all the grandchildren around the dinner table for someone's birthday, you don't hear everything, you don't like going, you feel silly because you haven't kept up, you don't go the next time, and then you become less and less isolated. So vision and hearing and pain management and general sort of movement as such, all of those things together mean that by the time you're 80 or 90, you've chipped away at them and stayed active, because there's too many excuses to not be active. And that could just be as simple as wearing a hearing aid. It's like they know there's a connection between hearing and dementia. Well, that's the connection. It's physical because it's not making the back of your, if you can't hear, you're not actually moving bits of cells around in circulation in your brain. But it's also acquired because you're not going out, you're not mixing with people. So,
but if you're physically active as well, I mean, presumably that helps you with your eyes and ears and stuff anyway, because you're out and about, and you know, there's the thing about looking at screens or looking at a horizon, and your eyes are going to be better. But when I was talking earlier, like about James helping people up and down, because there's a few things here, because people can do that. The NHS thing, and I totally agree with you. Like, we just can't, and it's a great thing. We just can't rely on it. We just can't, because
well,
like you say,
we also don't want to pay any more tax. And if we don't want to pay any more tax, we're going to have to find other ways to stay fit and well and stay out of their hair and let them get on with the serious stuff.
So with that, like I mean, it can be controversial, can't it? But like, just personal responsibility. But you know, some people are like, it's not as simple as that. And it's like, well, it is in my head. But anyway, but that's as simple as, even at home. And you've just said, like, if it's a nice sunny day, there's a bit of a green over there, you can go and do something over there, go for a walk. But simply getting up and down off the floor for people, because like you said, people fall over, they hurt themselves. That's when things can decline. There's a guy called Dan John who's been on this podcast a hell of a lot, and he talks about this a lot. And he did a thing of teaching people how to fall over and how to roll and tumble. But then he thought, well, no, let's teach people how to not fall over in the first place. You know what I mean? Instead of teaching people how to roll when they do fall over, teach them how not to. Because I know when I slip, I'm out walking a lot and stuff like that. If I slip on something, my body just like goes way, like, and I'll balance myself, move in a way. I might fall over, but inevitably I don't. But if I might just go down. Like if my mum goes down, she goes down, arms down by her side like that, and that's it. Her arms don't. She doesn't put her hands out or anything like that, because she might break her wrists or whatever.
We need to get intergenerational about this stuff, because I was watching some rugby matches at the weekend with 15, 16-year-olds, and they're so brave, aren't they? They're like shoulder down, pushing each other over. They're not frightened of the floor. Whereas once you start to become frightened of the floor, you're right. You sort of do anything you can to not hit the floor, and that's exactly when you do hit it. And it's an interesting problem, the falling over thing.
It's interesting, Pete, you said that, because I've only just come back from Iceland, haven't I? And it was actually, I think it was yesterday or the day before. The morning I was coming home was freezing cold. It was like -4 or something. And I walked out the hotel, and I was just taking a few photos on the last morning. And there was a bit, the pavement was really quite grippy, but it had obviously been frosty and cold overnight. But the pavement, I had lovely traction on. And I wanted to turn around and take a photo of this hotel. And I stepped from the pavement onto the road, and the road was like a sheet of ice. I stood up, and I had these Vans like shoes, they're not really particularly grippy. So I stepped from the pavement, I had my camera in my hand or my phone in my hand, stepped from the pavement onto the road, and nearly went, did that thing that you said, where you go, whoa, 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 whoa. And then,
cartoon with your legs going.
and then stood. And I sort of stood, and then the first thing I did was, did anyone see that? Like look around, and then turned.
You see, if you were a kid, you wouldn't move like that, would you? What you do is you probably just sit on the floor. You just go down with it, and you'd relax, and it would be over. Whereas we start to become a bit weird about the floor, as though it's the world's worst place.
It did take me a second though to realise what's happened there. Like it was conscious, like it was like, because I was very stable. And then suddenly I'm on ice, and it took me a second to like, what's happened? Oh God, okay, right, it's icy, okay. And it's you
become a bit adrenaline then. Your heart rate goes up. You feel a bit shocked that you nearly fell over. I think it's an interesting part of the process, but it's everything, isn't it? It's making sure your bones. If you're not worried that you're going to break a bone, having broken a bone, I'm now ridiculously worried about breaking a bone. Whereas actually, there's no reason why I should break a bone. I've got good bone density. I'm doing weights. I'm doing all the things. I've got the HRT. And I think we have knowledge now of what will make a difference to bone density in the long term. So if you're a 40, 50-year-old now and you're a woman, you should be looking at what do I need to keep that. But what's the evidence base around bone density? And I'm not here to talk about what it might be for any individual, but I've chosen to use weight-bearing exercise, so weighted exercise, and HRT as a evidence-based solution to my bone density. So you might want to look at that. And I think those things are available. Don't trust Instagram. Don't just look at the idiot on Instagram who thinks it, but go looking for nice guidelines and stuff like that. Go and look for where is the evidence that means you're going to be fit at 80, because it's there. We know it's there. Radio 4 had a good program on a little while ago, and they were talking about a long-term study into women's long life. Women that have lived, they've been looking at them for 30 years. There were lots of things, all the things you can imagine, plant-based diet, all sorts of stuff that might have an influence. But one of the things was fidgeting. And when they'd asked for 30 years, one of the questions was, do you fidget? And the women who'd lived the longest and were the most well were the fidgeters. And you think, well, that's interesting, because that's just movement, isn't it? It's just movement and being busy.
Yeah.
There's a guy, Tim Anderson, talks about this on his stuff. He does like this thing called original strength, which is basically getting up and down off the floor, crawling, like learning to move like kids do, basically.
Yes.
And he says, your body repairs itself at the speed of your central nervous system. And as you get older, if you don't do much, your central nervous system will slow down. So that's the thing of, if you're going to fall over, you slip. James did it the other day. He said he slipped and he was like, whoa, and you didn't fall over because your body reacted.
Yeah.
Whereas you see people, their body reacts when they're already on the floor, and it's not funny, but it's like they're already on the floor and then they go like, oh, I should have done, I've fallen. Yeah. They don't even realize they've done it, rather than keeping the central nervous system on point, which is movement, basically, isn't it? It's getting up and
going. It's movement, and it's also I think mental agility. So I often describe when I'm talking about dementia, I say to people about mental agility. People always think about dementia in particular as memory problems. It's way broader than that. It could be judgment. It could be walking across a shadow feels a bit like you might fall down a hole. That sort of judgment. It could be the sort of judgment where you go to cross a road and the car coming. You can no longer judge the speed at which it's coming. But the mental agility thing, I think, is fascinating, because when I use the example of Love Actually, the film, it's that time of year, 5th of December, this, isn't it? Perfect time. If you watch Love Actually, the mental agility for someone who does not have dementia is quite straightforward. There's about 5 stories going on in that film. There's something to do with a lobster and something to do with the Prime Minister and something to do with a love affair going on. There's a lot going on. But because you have good mental agility, you can keep up. You can go from one story to another. Once you lose that mental agility, that then makes no sense whatsoever. So you don't watch it. You're not part of it. So you then can't have a conversation about it. But that mental agility disappearing is just as important as the physical agility, I think. And I think when I look at the people who are struggling the most in that older age is not the point. It's where are they on a spectrum of mental and physical agility, strength, interest, curiosity about life. And I think you're mentally, you described, one of you described earlier, oh, well, my body might be not willing, the mind's willing, but the body isn't. There's a lot of that. But some of those people who've got a really good brain and are interested in things, they're perfectly happy in their much older years. They're having a really good quality of life. They read the paper from cover to cover every day, but they need someone to talk to. They need a conversation. Whereas the lady who hasn't got very much memory and isn't really aware of where she's at with dementia needs someone to go for a walk with. And it's creating a community in which everybody can thrive, given what ends up happening. I mean, you can all work as hard as you like on your fitness. There are some conditions which are going to happen to some people. We haven't got cures for Parkinson's and motor neurone and some of these things, as hard as the scientists are working at it. Once we get those people with those problems within our community, what we owe them is somewhere to go. Your business could help, my business can help, community clubs, all those things. But we've got to, as a community, go looking for the people that are isolated. And I think that's part of the biggest picture. And I think that's where the care companies are in a unique position, because they're being invited into people's homes and they can see those problems. But then businesses like yours or other people who might be listening who've got a walking group or a sewing group or a knit and natter group need to find their customers, don't they? I think that's it's quite hard to get people to get out.
There was a thing on, I can't remember what it was on, but it was Cy King, one of the hairy biker.
Oh yeah.
And it was a pie club. There was these guys who all get together every Tuesday or something. They make pies.
Brilliant.
That's what they do. And it was like it was that, and that was for their mental health. It was brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Just
yeah.
anything. It's
Anything
Yeah.
that gets you with other people, I think is part of the thing. I mean, my dad quite likes to do. He's going to kill me for saying this if he listens to this, but he used to do all through. He's 84, 85 now, and he's always been extremely fit and well. And one of the things he used to do is he used to do a spin class, and then he'd go cycling in the Highlands of Scotland. This is right through to his late 70s. But what he really liked doing was Darcy Bustle's Pilates at home on the video, so that was quite good too.
I bet he did. There was an old joke about that about the Cindy Crawford workout video back in the day, but I'll not talk about that.
No, this is fantastic. It really is, because it's like you say, it's trying to look at, and this is the thing where a lot of the listeners, like I said to you, I think before we started recording, or I messaged you, a lot of the people who listen to this are going to be in their 40s or their 50s or their 60s maybe. So people our age are looking at, and one of Pete's things he says a lot is, what's it going to look like in 20 years, and how can what we do now, how's that going to look in 20 years time? So for us, we're all getting older, so we are going to hopefully, like you say, be old at some stage. But then a lot of the people who are listening now will have elderly parents, or parents in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and potentially beyond. I mean, my gran, bless her, died at 100. This is something that's going to affect all of us, isn't it? And I think it's something that one of the questions, which is quite a big question, I suppose, because we're going to wrap up in 5 minutes, but it was and we touched upon it, that as the population continues to get older, how sort of health and social care models are going to need to evolve, because although we talk about the difference between sort of lifespan and health span, and the fact that, yes, people may live to 90, but the last decade of their life, they might be in really poor health and basically just be, in a care home or something, and really not be very well. So it's trying to shorten that gap, isn't it, between the health span and the lifespan, and what we can do, because like you say, society, the population is getting bigger, and the resources aren't going to go around anymore. So it's a really interesting.
It's interesting, isn't it? I think this government have just published a paper about the NHS 10-year plan, and there's a lot of very sensible things about bringing things into the community, into neighbourhoods, and they're going to need to tap into the community voluntary sector things. I mean, I think the other thing about volunteering is huge. So people who've got a bit more time on their hands volunteering to do that. I was talking to the library here at Southend. There's 5 libraries under Southend Council here, and they're looking at how do they make the libraries more accessible for people in older age. And it's like, well, actually, if you had a volunteer who was there on the door showing people where things were and helping, but that volunteer is getting out of it as much as the person that they might be helping. So I think that is not a question you can answer in 4 minutes.
No.
Because if I could, I'd be making a huge amount of money advising governments that, save billions of pounds. But I think the fact is that each community has got to take responsibility for the demographic that it's got with them. So, and I think some of those lovely things that you every now and pop up on the television that are from Holland, where, there's or we've had them here actually, where there's a play school attached to the elderly care home. And so you've got that mix. So you've got the mum who's got the littlies has probably got a granny in that care home or in that age group. But that granny could be, the grandmother could be in Scotland, but the littlies are here. And so it's about, I think it's intergenerational, I think is the answer. And I think volunteering and putting time in so that everybody's looking out for everybody else. The problem with very large cities is that it's too easy to hide, isn't it, in a big city?
Communities become fractured, don't they? You don't know the person next to you, or it's a huge, like you say, it's very difficult, very complicated.
My pet hate is the big companies that do these very big blocks of flats, and the only people that are allowed to live there are over 55s. I absolutely hate them. I think that they are creating a ghetto of old people just at the time when that is the last thing we need, is a ghetto of old people. What we need is people with nice, willing neighbours who'll help. So but I think taking responsibility for your own health, looking after yourself, as you say, the self-care thing, and then recognizing that the state can't make you well. You've got to we've got to leave the emergency departments to the people who really need them. Just going back to your point about 10 years in a care home, that's really unusual even now. What care homes are becoming is more like a hospice setting. So people are staying in their own home for longer, and they're only using care homes. In the past, people were in care homes for 10 years. They would go out for lunch and go back to the care home, as a there were care homes that had a car park for the residents' cars. Those days are long gone, and actually the level of care that's going on in a lot of care homes is nursing care. It's very high level, short
Yeah,
time.
don't necessarily mean what I mean is probably because I know my dad died at about 70, maybe 72, but for the last kind of decade or maybe 15 years of his life, he was really unwell. I mean, he didn't look after himself at all. It was self-inflicted. But you get it's almost like people can live now. They can be kept alive, if you like, through medical for decades.
Yes.
When really, but the quality of life is really tanking in the last 10 plus years sometimes. So
I think that's what I'm in the business of. My business, if you like, I named it after my grandmother, Doris Jones.
I was going to ask where the name came from.
Doris Jones. It's a funny name, but it's a good name because it says what it. We look after your grandmother the way I'd look after mine, sort of thing. But I think that what we have the opportunity to do in home care is to solve lots of those problems in order to be much more than just people who run in, give someone a quick, wash and hand them their medicine and meal. And I think that's we're going to be a big part of the future of the elderly care sort of situation, is that we won't necessarily be doing everything because families will have to do some things, but it's about sharing the load with families and keeping the money earners in their jobs, because there are 6 million unpaid carers in this country who've had to give up work to be the person who's doing the care. And I think somewhere in there's a balance where you keep the taxpayers working, you get nice jobs for really vocational care workers, and you keep all those generations spinning.
This is brilliant. That's been so. I mean, we will definitely have to speak to you again, because this is, like you say, this isn't a not a problem. It's not a situation that's going to change or go anywhere quickly. And the population is getting older. People are going to need to look at ways to look after themselves and to help people look after parents and things. So we will definitely have you back on. And just I was just going to say, so if people are, I know on Instagram you are on at dorisjones.care.
Yeah.
And you personally are on as at Caroline Southgate.
Yeah.
And dorisjones.co.uk is the website. And
Perfect.
I mean, is that kind of where people can find out about stuff?
Yeah, that's who find it. And if you're not in our area, the Care Quality Commission, so cqc.org.uk, you can look up care companies in your area and find out how good they are quite easily. That's a good starting point.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. That's I mean, this is something we could, like you say, we could talk a lot about this. It's so interesting. That was good, wasn't it, Pete? Something totally different.
It's like you say, this problem isn't going to go away, and that's why we do the podcast like this, don't we? That's why we want to talk about this stuff, because it's talking to people in their 30s all the way through to the people we've been talking about today, which is everybody.
Yeah.
Like you said, this affects everybody, whether you die young or not. Someone in your life is going to be, you're going to have a grandma, you're going to have a mum, you're going to, like, it's just, it's there.
Yeah. And the other thing, Peter and James, is that we need probably another 400,000 care workers in this workforce over the next few years. And there may be people listening to this who are really fed up with their job, or they're just about to be made redundant because of AI. And actually, if they're caring people who are interested in other people's well-being, being a care worker is great. It's
AI proof. I like that.
It's AI proof. It's interesting. It's fun. It's good. I mean, there are people that are difficult and things, but actually we like a bit of a challenge. So, it's a good job. So we could perhaps come back and talk about that.
Yeah, no, this is, definitely. This has been really lovely talking to you. And like I say, in 275 episodes, this is the first kind of conversation of this type in this sort of depth that we've had, which is so interesting. So thank you so much. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. We'd love a review on there. If you're listening on Spotify, just give us a 5-star rating on there. And if you don't already, subscribe to us on YouTube. Now, we will be back next week. We are going to be joined by Pavel Macek from Prague, who has been on before, but he's going to be talking about his next course that he's going to be running when he comes over to England in March. Okay. And then the week after that, I think we've got Emma Brennan on, who is a physiotherapist from Belfast in Northern Ireland, who was just with me out at the Magnus Classic. She does all the kind of physio and care for the athletes out there every year, and she runs a gym in Belfast as well. So we've got a couple of great guests coming up over the next few weeks. That was really interesting, Caroline. Thank you so much. She's nodding.
Thank
She's
you.
mute.
So I'm nodding.
That's all right. She's nodding.
Sorry.
Okay, brilliant. We will see you next week. And what will it be next week? It'll be the 12th of December. It'll be nearly time for Pete to unveil this Christmas jumper. Okay,
Honestly,
right.
you're gonna love it. You're gonna.
Maybe we could do 2 Christmas specials. We can do two weeks in the Christmas jumpers. Okay, brilliant. Did you get that in at the end? Because you froze for me, but I take it
you disappeared there. You were doing your Norman Collier for the people in their 80s.
Yeah, but could you hear me or not?
It doesn't matter. It's the end of the episode.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, but I was wrapping up, so hopefully it's okay. It just froze right at the end, didn't it? Yeah, mine. Yeah, cool. Excellent. Thank you so much, Caroline.
Oh, you're welcome. That's fun. Thank you.
Are you going to the dinner tonight or?
No, I'm not going tonight. I thought I had some. I actually thought I had something on. I haven't, so I'm actually going to take the advantage of staying in.
Yeah, no, I'm not there tonight either, but I'm going to go in December.
I'll go in December
because I've literally just got back from Iceland like yesterday, so I thought it's just going to be too much I just thought I'd need a bit of time, so I'll definitely go in December.
Yeah,
So
I'll see you there.
Yeah, see you there. Brilliant. Thanks so much,
Nice
Caroline.
to meet you, Peter. See you.
Brilliant.
That was great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.